like I've been saying with Undead Unluck, one thing we've been waiting for is what exactly is going to be the antagonist group? What is going to be, the enemies of the series? And that's one thing that I think that anybody who has been following this, and I do enjoy the series, I do think it's really entertaining, that nobody's really known. And when we're at what, chapter 29, we're like, okay, well, what is going to be what is going to be like, the opposing faction of series? Because obviously the whole setup with the apocalypse is still something they have to fight against, still something they have to prevent. But I don't think the series would be able to survive on just, they run into a Uma whenever they go on one of these missions, and the Uma's, a big powerful monster and stuff. I mean, they could still have those as enemies, but there still has to be, at least in my opinion, I think a lot of people would probably agree, some form of opposing faction. And these new guys, when they showed up, the question was, are these guys going to be a reoccurring bad guy set, or are they going to be like, one of those smaller enemy sets that, we see, and maybe there's like a bigger one that they're connected to something? Because like when this dude, I think they called him Rip in this chapter, I think that's his name. When he got shot through the chest, I was like, well, maybe he's just dead, because what we knew of his power and how it was going to affect Izumo and stuff. Was like, okay, well, maybe they're gonna have to. I assume they were gonna have to kill him if he wasn't gonna end up like joining and then taking off the power of his own accord. But and they just straight shot him like right through the chest. I think it was like right through the heart too from Andy. So I was like, oh well, maybe they're just gonna kill him, and this group is not actually gonna be a big deal. Maybe they'll be just like a smaller one. Like I think an easy example and comparison to me is like if you have read Fairy Tale, the first couple chapters, like first little enemy with Eisenwald and Aragorn. It's like, okay, they were connected to a bigger set of enemies, but it's like these guys themselves were just like, for this one smaller arc, they weren't really a big deal. And it turns out we did actually find out about this, this enemy group. We found out about these dudes and what exactly their purposes and what they're doing. It took me actually kind of a minute to understand like what the dude was saying while he was explaining a bit about their faction and about what they were doing. But like, this chapter starts out, Andy just shoots this dude right through the chest. The girl that he's with is, freaking out a little bit, but calls their big whale. I'm curious, like this weird extra giant monster killer whale, if this is from some form of mythology or like some form of rumor, kind of like because from what I understand, somebody explained it to me before, is that Uma is like what the Japanese call kind of like there was like unidentified, I think it was like unidentified mythical anomaly or something. That it was essentially kind of like Bigfoot. You have this unknown creature that from like legends and stuff, or like the chupacabra, or Loch Ness monster. I will say I would like to see the chupacabra in there. I've always thought the chupacabra was just a cool myth. But like they get into like inside of this big whale creature, and they're like, all right, he won't, like the girl's just like saying like, I promise this is you can ask him the questions you want later, when they're trying to be like, who are you guys? And she's just like, no, he's not gonna die here. So I was like, oh well, they're gonna somehow save him. Maybe they have some crazy surgeon or something. It seems to be, I think, the best guess. Especially after this chapter, and then really thinking about the series, is going to be a guy who has a negator power, and he's just happy. He's happy to see like they all did what they could, and he's even saying like he couldn't have beat him without everyone's help, everyone with their teamwork. I do like Tatiana on this. I think Tatiana's pretty funny. I like her character so far. Is like little loli in a robot suit with this really crazy power. I think she's definitely one of the more entertaining characters. She's one of my favorites so far. Though I don't know, I just have this prediction that the gun dude is going to be my favorite because he looks badass, looks like his power is really cool, and then from what we saw from the flashback with Tatiana, he just seems like a really cool dude. At the moment, though, it's definitely Andy, but we're still really early in, so it's kind of hard to pick favorite characters right now. But at least as of right now, like I really like Andy, but I have suspicions about this other character. Also, just looking at, there's like a part where Izumo is like holding, it's like holding Andy's katana, but she's like not holding it by the handle. She's like holding it under her arm, like, just like if she was like holding an umbrella. And yeah, I feel like she could get cut so easy from that. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just thinking about that, like looking at that right now. It's just like, gotta be careful. I feel like that could easily just slice open from your arm or something. But after that, like, you get a nice little week of time pass. You have this other dude, Chikara is his name. I'm trying to get. It's always a little bit harder when it's like a series that I enjoy, but I'm not like super like I'm not as driven into Undead Unluck as I am something like Chainsaw Man, even though they're both still fairly new. And then a newer character who I like, but I'm not too hyped. I'm not like big hype on is this guy Chikara, so like his name doesn't instantly like stick into my brain. I mean, also he doesn't have one of the easy name remembering things, at least for me, is like a really a character who just automatically is like big hype or has like a very easy memorable name. I'm like the dude Rip, easy name to remember. Like Andy, easy name. Chikara obviously is gonna be something that doesn't fully stick into my head, but after that point, well, they're like, okay, we're gonna let him, go back to his life and then figure out if he wants to join us or not. They're just kind of like giving him the option of like, do you want to, be in this group and do things and, help save potentially the world, or do you want to, you can go try and live your normal life the best you can. The obvious damage, like worrisome thing in that setup is the fact that with his power, he could easily get hunted again. He could easily get tracked down by any of these guys and be trying pretty much abducted and go through the same thing. The smartest rather, and most efficient solution would be probably to go with them. I mean, obviously, like, it's dangerous, but at least he's going to be around other really well, he's not very powerful. His power has a lot of potential, but he's going to be around a lot of really powerful characters. So even if he's not the strongest, he's got like a good support. Maybe they could team him up. That's like what Izumo has. Like she's like her power is very, very good and very useful, but she herself, like at least right now, doesn't really have any solo fighting capabilities. But she's really useful as like a support character right now, and like obviously the way we've seen with her and Andy. Whereas like this Chikara dude, I feel like he would be really good teaming up with anybody if he can just use his power and stop somebody in their tracks, and then if they're with somebody that with the really good fighting, like imagine Shen, and then just locks him up, and then Shen just beats the hell out of him, something like that. But after that point, like they're waiting and they're surprised when the dude Rip shows up, but he's like a little kid. And I'm guessing that when I said earlier that like the power, they're the person that probably healed him is a negator with some like really good ability, and I'm guessing like maybe some form of almost like a phoenix like ability where it's like you're able to almost reborn them, like, but it's not gonna be the same as like healing. It's maybe like he'd almost like went back, like the heal him turned him probably like back into a baby, and then he just kind of like is fast aging to where he was before. It's just my guess, because otherwise it'd be like, well, how long is he gonna stay a kid like this? It's going to be like this for a while. I can just see it kind of like that, like a Phoenix Styles thing, where the guy's like, oh, here we go, uses power, like Rip turns into like an infant, and then, oh yeah, in 2 to 3 weeks you'll be back to normal. That's just my guess, but there was an explanation about like their group. Like I did like Andy just straight punching him, and the threats come out, but he gives Izumo a gun, and I'm wondering what the gun is really gonna be like in terms of origin, because the artifacts what we've seen, like Shen's staff, like obviously being the Nyoibo that like Wukong had, like Sun Wukong, like it has to do with stuff I imagine all will be from like important mythology, like items, like big things from like lores and stuff. But while she's holding on to it, she like sees this image of the future, and I guess it's like the god that they're trying to take down, and he's just like present with his aura around him. He's like melting buildings and setting people on fire, and there's the obvious worry of like, okay, this is this apocalypse that's happening. And we find out like this guy, he's part of this group called Under, and their whole thing is they want to make the world fair because they think it's unfair. And I do like the fact that the author is like, he's working in the whole like something theme of the series, unluck, undead, unrepair, unjust, or injustice, stuff like that, how it's always something, you're negating something. And like I said, it took me a minute to really kind of understand what he meant when they were explaining their powers, but I completely forgot of the fact that the negators, the guys with the powers, are hiding out. Like they don't reveal what's going on, but with the whole the book of the Revelations and these people with powers and stuff. It's obviously a secret, and essentially it's like they're like, oh well, why do we have to kind of like people with powers, like why are we living in like the shadows and stuff doing our thing? They essentially want to take over the world and live pretty much like gods until like the apocalypse actually happens, like until God one day decides to come like take over, like just destroy the world. They want to just be on top, they want to be where they think they should be. And I think that's actually really interesting. There was the note when they were saying how they're the only ones that could go to the next step. I wonder what exactly that's going to mean. Like, are they going to try and become gods themselves, or are they going to try and like go out into space or something and go to a different planet? There's definitely like weird questions in that whole thing by itself, but I do really like that idea because like the whole thing, it's like, oh, we want to make the world is unfair, we want to make it fair. And it's like, okay, well, what is the plan? It's like, well, after everything that these guys have all done with these powers, well, why aren't they appreciated more? Why aren't they living like the pretty much the big shots? Like if you have people who are pretty much preventing the end of the world, because they're saying like the world the way that it is all from from stuff that these guys have done, which is true. And some of it though is from failures and stuff, but it's still all influenced and kind of like in a way directed by these guys in the book of Revelations, like any of these indicators throughout their the history of the series and the world. So I do think it makes a lot of sense why they would want to be like, oh, we think we should be the ones on top, we should be the ones that are leading everything, and the ones that are going pretty much sit above all the others. And again, I like that a lot. I thought that was interesting in a way for the villains to have this kind of almost world domination mindset, and just because it's a pretty standard villain thing. That's like one of probably the most villain, like classical villain like goals. Oh, take over the world. But why exactly? I think that's obviously the big differing factor. Is it just like, oh, I just want to be the boss? It's like, well, why? And then they're able to work it really well in here. That has to do with connecting obviously to the way that the hours have all been living and stuff. I like that a lot. I think that by itself is pretty interesting, and I definitely want to see I want to see more of this from the series. So I like Undead Unluck. Like I've said, I enjoy it. I am looking forward to seeing how this like transpires. Like how high in Rip's group is he ranked and stuff? Like is he like top 10? Is he top 5? I don't think he's the leader, I would guess. Just because I feel like if he was the leader, introducing him already would be kind of not a bad thing, but it would be surprising. I don't know. I feel like he's probably like a big shot, but not like the leader. But we'll see. Anyway, other than that though, comment below. Tell me your thoughts about this chapter, and tell me your thoughts about this series and what's to come. And I'd really appreciate if you thumbs up the button, subscribe button, and to check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.